So, just arrived at the cinema for Scream 7. I'm quite late to this one. This came out like a couple of weeks ago now. Obviously, I've seen the reviews, I've seen the thoughts on Twitter, I've seen everything about Scream 7. I know that this is going to be a controversial one, to say the least. And I mean, you know, I'm not the biggest like hardcore Scream fan. I enjoyed the movies. I especially got into them in the last couple of years with Scream 5 and 6. I really enjoyed those. So going into Scream 7, like obviously this is kind of weird. This isn't the kind of direct continuation of Scream 6 that, you know, especially I personally wanted. This is kind of going back to, this is almost in a way a sequel to Scream 4, if anything. But either way, I'm still interested to see the film. You know, I'm looking forward to see what they do with it. I've obviously just not heard the best things about the quality of this particular film and the way the story goes. But we'll have to wait and see. I mean, my own personal anticipation is still there. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do. Like, yes, it's not what I would have done with Scream 7. I was looking forward to the continuation of the core four, and of course with Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega. But that obviously hasn't happened for reasons that we all know. So we're going back to Sidney Prescott, and I think that that's, you know, a fine direction to go. I'm glad that Neve Campbell is getting the money that she wanted and that she needed for this franchise. I'm just kind of, you know, it's just not what I wanted to do with Scream. But anyway, with all that said, let's go in, let's go see it, and let's go judge the movie for what it actually is rather than what I want it to be. So yeah, let's go in. So yeah, that was interesting. That was an interesting film. You know what? I enjoyed it. I actually thought it was quite fun. It's not a perfect movie, and to be honest, it probably is the weakest Scream film out of the 7. That being said, though, I still think that this film has a lot of enjoyment to it, and I think that this kind of proves that this franchise, even at its lowest, still provides a pretty fun time nonetheless. Like, for me personally, I went through the film, and like I say, I think it's flawed. I think there's things I certainly have problems with, but in general, I'm coming away from the film feeling positive. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good time. I thought it was a fun horror movie and a fun addition to the Scream lineup. Like I said, it's not the most satisfying. It's not the most compelling. It's certainly not one that I think, you know, I'm going to go back to over some other films in the franchise that I love, like 1 or 5, or even 6, to be fair. I still think 7 is worthy of the franchise, and I still think it's pretty fun. So in terms of what I liked about the film, I think it was nice to have Neve Campbell back. I mean, she's only was gone for one movie. Like, I honestly don't feel like Neve Campbell coming back was as big of a deal as, like, the marketing has made it out to be, because she was in Scream 5, and yeah, she wasn't in 6, and they talk about that in this movie. They talk about the fact she wasn't in the last one. But she was only gone for one movie. Like, I don't see it as, like, this huge thing that, like, Neve Campbell is back. But it's good that she's here. You know, I love Neve Campbell. I love Sidney Prescott. She is, you know, one of the original Scream queens of that era. I think she is good in this movie. I think she's really good. You know, they talk about, you know, there's one character in particular who talks about the fact that, you know, Sidney's past her prime in this film. And she proves that that is very much not true. Like, this is not the case with Sidney Prescott. I think she's really great here, and I really like what she brought. I also think the inclusion of her daughter, you know, played by Isabel May Tatum, was a really good addition to the cast. I was a little bit worried going into the film about her, to be honest with you. Like, she was a character that I wasn't quite sure how I was going to take to, because sometimes, you know, when they introduce the kid of like the legacy character, it can often be like a passing of the torch moment, or it's kind of like a stark contrast thing. I actually think that the character of Tatum comes across really, really well. She's clearly, you know, she takes a lot from Sidney, and that kind of comes out throughout the movie more and more. But I like the fact that she is also quite different from her in a lot of ways, and, you know, Sidney has grown up, you know, having the life that she had, and thus Tatum has become this kind of product of that, where she is this incredibly overprotective mother, and, you know, rightfully so. You can completely understand where she's coming from. But Tatum, on the other hand, is obviously feeling the effects of that, and I think that her arc in the movie and where she ends up is really great. And I think Isabel May's performance was really good as well, because she wasn't like, I was honestly expecting her to be a very, very annoying, incapable character, and that's not the case with Tatum. While she does come across perhaps a little bit incapable to begin with, that's very much a part of her character and a byproduct of her being Sidney Prescott's daughter. By the end of the movie, I think they do a lot of good stuff with her. I also liked the addition of Joel McHale as Sidney Prescott's husband and Tatum's dad. I thought he was a fun inclusion. He's also the chief of police for the little town that they live in here. And I think that he was also a fun addition. He doesn't have like a ton of screen time, but when he is there, he's good. You know, I always like Joel McHale. He's always good and stuff. And I think the whole cast do a really good job. Like, there are lots of like really fun like new additions, like Celeste O'Connor, McKenna Grace, Asa German, who you'll remember as Sam from Gen V. Really good cast members. Like, again, none of them have like massive major roles, but they're good when they're there. And I think that they are fun additions to the Scream pantheon. And the other two characters I want to shout out who I absolutely loved was Chad and Mindy, who of course returned from 5 and 6. I wish they had a bigger role in this. Like, I really wish they had a bigger role in this, but from where they are there, they just remind me why I loved those characters so much in 5 and 6. They've got such good energy. They're so fun together. Like, Mindy, the way she is able to just rattle off all these things about the investigation and where she's at with it is great. And Chad's just so cool. Like, he's such a cool character. I love those two. And honestly, like, for me personally, going forward with this franchise, because we know Melissa Barrera's not coming back and Jenna Ortega's not coming back. Like, we know that's just not going to happen. I think the leads of this franchise should be Chad and Mindy, and honestly, Tatum. I think that would be a really solid trio of characters to kind of be the new trio and the new leads going forward. You know, the old trio you would consider to be Sydney, Dewey, and Gale. I think we can have a new trio here with Chad, Mindy, and Tatum. And you've still got then a connection to the previous characters. This is still Sydney's daughter. You can still have Neve Campbell show up. You can still have Gale show up. Obviously, Chad and Mindy have a connection to Gale at this point. You can still have those characters in play, but I think the franchise does need to move forward a little bit. And I think going forward with these three, Chad, Mindy, and Tatum, I think that would be a really good place to go forward with the franchise. I also enjoyed, obviously, all the gore and the Ghostface killings in this. They're pretty good. Like, you get some really fun, brutal ones in this. This was honestly a lot more brutal than I thought. Like, when the title card opened up and it showed that Scream 7 was an 18, I was like, are all the Scream movies this high rated? Like, I honestly don't remember Scream 6 being an 18. I could be completely wrong, but that's just like, that was like an impression. But then going into the film, like, when you actually see the kills, yeah, fair enough. This is an 18. This is a pretty gory film, and I really enjoyed it. I think that you get some really fun stabbings in this film. Obviously, in the last movie, we saw Ghostface use a gun. He doesn't use a gun in this one, but what he does with the knife is pretty spectacular, so I enjoyed that. And, of course, I will talk about, like, nostalgia in this film, because this is very much like the nostalgia play Scream movie. Like, 5 kind of did that a little bit. But I think that Scream 7 is very much like, you know, that they're purely playing on that nostalgia. Scream 5 was kind of like, you know, they were taking the piss out of legacy sequels and remakes and stuff like that. This is very much like a franchise going back to its roots, and they very much play on that. And I can definitely see why some people are saying that this is kind of like the Scream movie that jumped the shark. Like, this is definitely the one that, you know, almost became the type of movie that Scream movies have infamously taken the piss out of in the past. But I don't think it's quite there. I don't think it goes quite across that line. I still think that there is some good stuff here. And I think it's commentary on nostalgia, especially Mindy in particular has a great scene with this, where she goes through about, you know, nostalgia in franchises and stuff like that. I think, you know, she always has great commentary on that sort of stuff. And I think she has a great scene here talking about that. I think it's actually a really good take, and I think that it's fun, especially because, you know, it's no secret that there are certain cast members from previous Scream movies. In this one, particularly Matthew Lillard does return here, and what they do with him is fun. Like, Matthew Lillard is obviously great. It's not ideally, I guess, what you would want, you know, but still, I think it's a fun kind of way of bringing Stu back. And I think that Matthew Lillard, you know, performance-wise alone, like just him alone is entertaining and is fun. So I enjoyed that. But moving over to like the negative side of things, I think that Scream 7, to be honest, its biggest flaw is the ending. Now, I don't want to go... Well, actually, you know what? Screw it. Spoilers ahead for Scream 7. I don't normally do this in videos, but I can't really talk about this without talking about spoilers. So my overall review for Scream 7, me personally, I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. It's probably the weakest Scream movie, just below Scream 3. I think this is probably the worst Scream. I don't want to say worst, like I say weakest, I think is the right word, because I still enjoyed it. So I'd say if you're a Scream fan, I would still go ahead and watch it. Like, I know the reviews have been really, really negative, but I would still go ahead and watch it. Make up your own opinion. If you're not a Scream fan, don't watch it. Like, it's not going to change your mind. Like, say, if you're going to watch a Scream movie that's going to, change your mind on Scream, this is not the one to do that. But I think overall, it's still fun. It's still enjoyable. So let's talk about the ending, because the ending is kind of what takes the wind out of the whole movie for me. Because, like I say, this whole film is kind of like a nostalgia play. And there's commentary on that. The movie talks about that. And then when you get to the ending and it's revealed who the Ghostface killers are, it just completely goes against that. You okay, Meek? Yeah. Yeah, the Ghostface killers in this movie, when they're revealed, like, if you thought the last movie was bad, you haven't seen nothing yet. It's revealed that the two killers in this are somebody who works at a local mental institution, who you meet in one scene, and the next door neighbor to Sidney Prescott in this town, who you meet for like 2 scenes in the movie, and she's the mother of one of the kids in the local high school. And it's kind of like, when the first character is revealed and it's the guy who works in the mental institution, I was just like, what have you got to do with any of this? And then when she reveals herself, you're like, this is such an odd pairing. How did this happen? And, you find out earlier in the movie that this mother, I can't remember what the character, Jessica was her name. You find out that she had like an abusive husband and she left him and all this, and it doesn't really go into it massively. So it's revealed at the end of the film that she was obviously in this abusive relationship. She was being abused consistently, but then she read Sidney Prescott's book, and that kind of inspired her to do her own thing, stand up for herself, and get out of that situation. But then she, over the time, she became then a huge fan of Sidney Prescott. Like, she loved everything that she did. She followed her, adventures at that point. And then when it's, Sidney eventually kind of moved away from that life and wanted to take a life for herself, that then angered this woman so much that she put herself into a mental institution because she couldn't handle the fact that Sidney Prescott was just a normal person. And in that mental institution was where she met this other guy who just helped her out with this stuff. Just such a shit reveal, like, so shit. Like I say, I enjoyed the film overall. But given the fact that this movie goes down the route of being like a nostalgia play, and obviously it kind of presents the idea that Stu is the main villain and he's back, to then, and I didn't think Stu was going to, like, I didn't think Matthew Lillard's character was alive. I didn't think that was the case. But to then just have the characters who are the Ghostface killers be completely irrelevant to Sidney's backstory, completely irrelevant to, like, the first Scream movie, is just a bizarre choice. Like, it just doesn't line up at all. So that really takes the wind out of the whole movie, because in Scream 6, obviously they have kind of a weaker killer lineup. Like, I think that the Ghostface killers in that movie are not very great either. But at least Scream 6 was really good, and I think that those killers at least kind of tied into it. Scream 7, I think the movie itself is decent. I think it's enjoyable. But then you get to the end, and the killers are just completely unrelated. Awful choices that it kind of, like I say, it kind of takes the wind out of the whole movie. Like, I was sitting there at the end, before the killing was revealed, I was like, I don't really get why people hate this so much. I was like, don't get me wrong, it's not amazing, but like, it's fine, it's enjoyable, it's fun. And then that happened, and I was like, okay, I kind of get it. Like, especially if you weren't particularly enjoying the movie to begin with, this is just going to completely kick you in the dick. Like, it's just a ridiculous reveal for the end. So yeah, that's kind of like that's my main major negative for Scream 7, is just like, what the fuck was the reveal at the end? Like, just crazy. The other negative, and it's not really like a major negative, it's just something, I kind of touched on this already, but Chad and Mindy need more screen time. Like, they need to be the leads of this franchise. Like, if we're not going to have Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega in this franchise, which, like, they're not coming back. Even if Spyglass offered them to come back, they won't come back, and rightfully so. But if they're not coming back, we need those two to step up, because they're such good characters. They are so much fun, and I loved their scenes. Like, honestly, like, when they were the focus at a small portion of the movie, when they were the focus, that was probably my favorite part of the film. even more so than what was going on with Sydney and Tatum. Like, they were my favorite characters and my favorite part. So I think for me, like, going forward, like, if Scream 8 is going to happen, which apparently it is, let's just move forward. Let's, you know, you can still have Sydney be a part of the movie, you can still have Gale be a part of the movie, but I want Chad and Mindy to be the leads going forward, and have Tatum be there as well. Now that she's gone through her arc, let's have them three as the core trio going forward in the franchise, and you can have Sydney and Gale as backup characters. I think that's the best way to go, because this is honestly the best possible option, I think, for a new protagonist going forward in the franchise, given the fact that Melissa and Jenna are no longer a part of it. But that's just my thoughts on Scream 7. Let me know your opinion in the comment section down below. And where would you rank Scream 7 amongst the other Scream movies? I mean, I can pretty much guess for most of you where that's going to go. But whatever you think, let me know in the comments down below. And if you want to see more movie reviews, make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell. I have got a couple more reviews coming up this week. I'm seeing The Secret Agent, Maggie Gyllenhaal's The Bride, Glenn Powell's How to Make a Killing. And I also, once I've seen The Secret Agent tomorrow, I am thinking of doing a ranking video on the Best Picture nominees this year before the Oscars on Sunday night. So make sure you stay tuned for all of that, make sure you subscribe, and I hope to see you guys again next time.